This week we looked at two different videos from Real Sports on HBO about the effects of youth sports and how various families across the country are spending tons of money and putting large portion of their time towards their kids and their club sports experiences. The two main families in the Youth Sports Inc. video were the Coe family, who had a son that played baseball, and he was mainly the focus, as well as a daughter that ran club track. Then we also talked to a group of soccer parents from a youth club in Texas called the Texans. And I'd like to talk about what was admirable about what they were doing. The first most important thing is just that ultimately, if their kids are interested in these sports and they think this is the best way for them to be able to play these sports and have fun, that's the most important thing. It's something that the kids are enjoying, and the parents said in the video that it's all because of their kids and they want their kids to have fun and they think that this is the best thing for them. The Coes talked about how much the mom even enjoyed going to these tournaments and having fun, and she knew that the most important thing was that her son was enjoying it and having fun with his friends on the team. So I think that's definitely something that's important. Another thing was just that we talked about how kids would fall behind if they weren't a part of these club teams, just because the infrastructure for sports is really become all about the club travel experience. So if you're not a part of these teams, you're going to fall behind and lose the opportunity to play, really because everyone is playing on these travel teams now. So from that perspective as well, if you have the money to do it and you can make that commitment, I think that's admirable as well. And that's really, there's not a whole lot of options anymore. So it's really, if you want to play sports, you have to go in this route. And then ultimately just the commitment for their kids. You can tell that these parents are very committed and invested in their kids, and because of the money that they're spending and the time they're giving up, you can definitely commend them for the commitment they're making to their kids and the fact that they clearly want them to have the best experience possible in sports. But also there's some harmful things that they're doing as well. Most importantly, I guess, is just setting the precedent of how much money they're spending. And that's not necessarily their fault, as it's really the people creating these teams and that created this system that are driving them to spend this much money. They don't have a choice, because while there are cheaper options and cheaper club teams, they're all expensive and they're all requiring these travel tournaments that are making it even more and more money. So from that perspective, it's just taking up a lot of money as well as a lot of time. The Coe family said that they think 50% of their time or more is spent on these club teams, and that's obviously a lot of time. It's taking away from the kids' opportunities to do other things, including other sports or other interests they may have, or even just to hang out with their friends. And then it's also taking away from school. A lot of these travel tournaments require you to miss a day of school to travel and things like that. So that's another reason why you could say that it's harmful. And then another thing is just the idea of sports specialization that's only increasing. According to Dan Wixon from the Dallas Morning News, he describes specialization as this idea that kids are only being able to play one sport and not necessarily being able to play 3 or 4 throughout the year like it maybe used to be. And this can be seen in the video as well, as the soccer parents talked about playing all fall. They would travel, and then clearly in the summer and the spring there was soccer as well, and the same could be said for baseball. In the Dallas Morning News article, they talked about a soccer player that had played since 3rd grade, and by the time he was 17, he just was burnt out to the point where he didn't think it was fun anymore, and it was more of a job than it really was even fun for him. So there's always a risk of that, and I think maybe that's the biggest reason why this could be harmful, is because, well, the kids are the reason why the parents start putting them in these programs. Ultimately, if they spend too much money and get them on this team where it's too much of a job more than it is fun, there's this opportunity for burnout and taking away from what they once loved about the sport. So there's definitely some harmful ideas as well. And then finally, just if I was in this opportunity to have in this position to have an opportunity for one of my kids to play on these elite teams, if they were offered to join one or they had interest in joining one, I think ultimately I would be fine with letting them play it as long as I had the money to support it. But ultimately, it would have to be the kid's decision. I wouldn't want to just push them in that direction because it's what everyone else is doing or because I want them to get to a certain point. It would have to be the kid's decision. So I'd have to talk to them and make sure they understand what they're getting into and the commitment that they're making. But I would certainly be ready to commit that money and time to them as long as I had it. But I would want to make sure that they understand what they're getting into and make sure that ultimately it's them that are making the decision to join that league, and I would support them, but I don't want to push them in that direction.